My name is Dr. Richard Stevenson, and I'm one of the explorers that will be crossing Antarctica as part of the Last Great First expedition team. In my normal day job, I live on the South Island of New Zealand in a place called Dunedin, and I'm a specialist emergency physician, a type of doctor that cares for people coming into the emergency department here at my local hospital in Dunedin. For the last 2 years, I've been training really hard to try and make the Last Great First a reality. I've worked with some fantastic people, and it's incredibly exciting and an absolute privilege to be part of this amazing team. One of the most formative experiences of my young life that set me up for really a lifetime of expedition and adventure to some amazing wild places in the world, the ultimate of which is our goal to cross Antarctica, was something that I did when I was 17 years old, and as part of the British Schools Exploring Society, I joined an expedition to northeast Greenland, and I still remember the incredible wonder and amazement at being in somewhere as incredible as northeast Greenland, somewhere incredibly remote, some absolutely pristine, untouched wilderness, and the sense of being a small human dwarfed by this vast natural environment where there was just me and my teammates and my equipment, entirely responsible for our survival in this beautiful but hostile wilderness. That sort of that experience, that sense of wonder, is something that stayed with me through my entire life, and it really is the heart of what drives me to do the things that I do, and is a huge motivation behind the Last Great First. I still remember what I think is probably my favorite camping spot that I've ever been to, and having been on some expeditions to some pretty remote parts of the world and some very beautiful places, it's actually quite a mundane spot. It's a little flat bit of ground nestling in the top of a valley in the North York Moors. I grew up quite near there, and that's the part of the world that I cut my teeth going walking with my dad. And I still remember my first ever night out in a tent that wasn't in my backyard, and it was this head of this wee valley, and I still remember the sense of amazement that there we were, me and my dad, in this little tent. So it was our only little patch of civilization where we're all safe and snug and warm, and outside was this incredible blackness and this wilderness space. And of course, actually, that camping spot was about 300 meters off a road, and about 2 kilometers away from the nearest pub. But to me, as a 8 or 9-year-old, it was incredibly adventurous, incredibly remote. And I think if I had to choose any spot that I've got the fondest memories of, it's that little spot there. I've been fascinated by the polar regions, both the Arctic and the Antarctic, since a very young age. I think for me, they typify wilderness. They are the most remote places on Earth, and they have some of the most hostile environments on Earth. And I think those two things combine to make them feel like they typify nature at its most raw, and wanting to experience nature in its sort of undiluted raw form is one of the great driving forces behind my many adventures into the world's great wilderness areas. And I think I don't think there's anywhere else that is quite so remote, quite so untouched, quite so raw as the polar regions. And you couple that with staggeringly beautiful landscapes, a sense of vastness, and some incredible wildlife. And I think that combination of factors is what makes the polar regions so special for me. When it comes to the last great first, I can't imagine a way of experiencing Antarctica in its purest and most undiluted form than trying to ski unsupported across the continent. It really is the ultimate way of immersing yourself in the Antarctic world and experiencing it with as few filters between you and the raw elements as it's possible to get. And for me, that's the fundamental motivation that lies at the heart of my drive to complete the last great first expedition. The reason that the last great first was given that name was because incredible things have been achieved in the polar regions in Antarctica. But one thing that so far humans have never managed to achieve is that full unsupported ski crossing of the entire continent. And that's what Gareth and I are setting out to do. And in many ways, that can be described as the last great first of polar exploration. One of the great goals of polar history that is yet to be completed. Being a part of the huge team effort that is going into making this a reality is an incredible privilege. And the more people that we can bring along with us on this incredible journey, the better. We want to share with people our wonder and the inspiration that we take from the Antarctic world. And we would love you to be able to join us on this journey. So please, like, share and subscribe us across the social media platforms, and subscribe to our newsletter to hear more. And we would absolutely love for you to become part of the Last Great First expedition family and support us in whatever way you can.